A police dog prevented a pilot from boarding his aircraft, resulting in delays and passenger frustration. However, when security personnel investigated under the cockpit seat, the discovery caused everyone to evacuate. Here's the story. Before we proceed, please share your location in the comments. If you enjoy unusual police dog stories like this one, remember to subscribe for future content. A stark light from the fluorescent fixtures illuminated Terminal 3 of O'Hare International Airport as Officer Michael Reeves straightened his winter patrol jacket, his exhale seen in the January cold filtering through the automatic doors. Adjacent to him, Titan, his German Shepherd partner for 3 years, kept a precise heel position, his dark eyes observing the continuous flow of travelers with seasoned focus. The morning rush was underway, with passengers hurrying to their gates through the snowstorm that had blanketed Chicago overnight. Weather delays had created a tense atmosphere, with anxious travelers checking departure boards and flight crews rushing to minimize further disruptions. Just another day in paradise. Huh, boy? Reeves murmured, reaching down to scratch behind Titan's ear. The shepherd leaned into his touch briefly before resuming his vigilant posture. Reeves smiled, recalling that his colleagues had given Titan the nickname the Professor because of his almost unsettling ability to analyze situations. The dog never barked without cause, a trait that had made them one of the airport's most respected security teams. They continued their sweep through the international terminal, Titan moving with fluid grace between bags and passengers. Occasionally, he would look toward Reeves, their long history of working together clear in the understated exchanges between them. They had recently gone by the exclusive airline lounges when Titan's demeanor changed sharply, a transformation so abrupt that Reeves immediately perceived it. The shepherd's ears rose, his body tightening as his attention settled on a pilot walking assuredly through the crew's security lane. Captain James Harrington, as indicated on his visible ID badge, proceeded toward the flight deck preparation area. A flight bag was slung over one shoulder. He appeared unremarkable. His uniform was spotless, and his demeanor professional, as he nodded to the security personnel. However, Titan shifted from routine patrol to heightened alertness. A low growl emanated from his throat, quickly intensifying to insistent barking as he pulled Reeves toward the pilot. "Titan, hail!" Reeves gave the command, but for the first time in their partnership, Titan disregarded the order. The shepherd moved forward, placing himself directly in the pilot's path, his barking now attracting startled glances from everyone nearby. When Captain Harrington tried to step around him, Titan mirrored his movements, physically preventing him from going any further. "Control your dog, officer," Harrington snapped, his face reddening as passengers began to stare. "I have a transatlantic flight departing in 40 minutes. I apologize for the inconvenience, Captain," Reeves said, keeping his voice measured while maintaining his grip on Titan's leash. "But my partner doesn't react this way without a reason." Harrington's jaw tightened. "Well, your partner is mistaken. I've been flying for American Airlines for 15 years. I don't have time for this." Airport Security Supervisor Diane Coleman stepped forward, her expression carefully neutral, given the unfolding situation in the bustling terminal. "What's the situation, Reeves?" she inquired softly. "Titan's alerting strongly to the captain here," Reeves responded, observing that Titan's focus remained consistently on Harrington. "I've never seen him react this intensely to airline personnel." "This is ridiculous," Harrington stated, glancing at his watch. "Flight 862 to London was already delayed because of the snowstorm. I have 243 passengers waiting to board." Coleman glanced between the barking shepherd and the increasingly agitated pilot. "Officer Reeves, you know we can't delay a flight because your dog is having an episode." Reeves felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. 3 years of working with Titan had taught him to trust the dog's instincts implicitly. Titan's assessments had proven accurate previously, including the discovery of a concealed weapon last year and the identification of a drug smuggler with surgical implants 2 months ago. "I'm requesting a secondary screening for Captain Harrington," Reeves stated firmly. "Protocol allows for random additional security checks of all personnel, including flight crew." "This isn't random," Harrington snapped, his face growing redder. "It's harassment. I'm calling the Airline Operations Center." While the pilot reached for his phone, Reeves observed a detail that reinforced his determination. A subtle tremor in Harrington's hand, a tension around his eyes that was absent just moments prior, suggested fear, or perhaps annoyance at the delay. Regardless, it wasn't the usual response from airline employees who sometimes experienced random screening. "Sir, please accompany us for a brief additional check," Coleman stated, having made her decision. "We are working to speed up the procedure to reduce any impact on your flight." "This is unacceptable," Harrington exclaimed, but Reeves observed the pilot's gaze shifting towards the closest exit. "Captain, this situation can be resolved discreetly, or we can formally report it," Coleman cautioned. "The decision is yours." Harrington's shoulders dropped a little. "Very well, but the airline will be informed of this." As they guided the pilot towards the private screening room, Reeves lowered himself to speak with Titan, who had become a bit calmer but remained watchful. He whispered, "Good boy. I trust you." Reeves glanced over his shoulder and saw the departure board. Flight 862 to London Heathrow was delayed. He hoped he wasn't about to make the biggest mistake of his career or prevent the biggest disaster. The private screening room was austere, featuring white walls, a metal table, and 4 chairs under unforgiving fluorescent lights. Titan remained alert by the door as TSA officer Marcus Wong carefully examined Captain Harrington's credentials. Everything was in order, Wong said, checking the pilot's license and ID against the database. Captain James Harrington, with 15 years of experience at American Airlines, was current on all certifications and clearances. Harrington sat rigidly, his arms crossed. "As I said, may I please proceed to my aircraft?" he asked. "The flight plan has already been filed, and we're burning fuel on the tarmac." Reeves watched quietly as Wong examined Harrington's flight bag. Standard items were found inside. Flight manuals, navigation charts, spare epaulets, reading glasses, an energy bar, and a travel-sized toiletry kit. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. "Sir, would you mind removing your jacket?" Wong inquired, his tone professional. Harrington complied with apparent annoyance, setting his uniform jacket on the table. This exceeded protocol even for a routine screening. Wong meticulously examined the jacket, inspecting each pocket and seam while Reeves observed Titan. The dog's focus remained constant. His gaze remained fixed on the pilot, tracking his every movement. After using her radio, Coleman checked with operations, then returned to the room, stating they're positioning a backup pilot just in case, but they need a decision within 15 minutes. Tension filled the small room. Reeves felt doubt begin to surface, even with his trust in Titan. The evidence, or the absence of it, was causing him to reevaluate his decision. "Look," Harrington said, his tone becoming more gentle. "I understand you're doing your job. Perhaps your dog detected the scent of my cat on my garments. I administered her medication this morning prior to departing." The reasoning seemed credible. Dogs sometimes react to animal odors, particularly medications containing chemical components resembling illicit substances. Wong finished his examination, discovering no irregularities. He confirmed that everything appeared correct. Coleman released a sigh of relief. "I believe we can exonerate Captain Harrington. We will document the event, and—" Titan abruptly barked loudly, standing up. Reeves knew from their time working together that this wasn't simple determination, it was a deliberate increase in intensity. The dog was signaling that they were overlooking something. "Sir," Reeves said cautiously, "could you please empty your trouser pockets as well?" Harrington's face registered a momentary shift. It was so subtle that most wouldn't have noticed it. "All right." He removed a wallet, keys, a phone, and some spare coins, setting them on the table. Wong scrutinized each item, paying close attention to the phone. Typical iPhone. "Is everything all right?" Harrington asked, gathering his things. As his sleeve moved, Reeves observed a slight dampness on the pilot's wrist, even though the room was cool. The man's breathing had also become a little faster. "Actually," Reeves said, "I'd like to request a full body scan and an ion detector swab." Harrington paused. "That's not a typical process for flight crew." "It is when there's reasonable suspicion," Coleman responded, her earlier skepticism diminishing as she also observed the pilot's changing behavior. "I need to make a call to my union representative," Harrington stated. Coleman nodded to Wong, who approached. Your phone will need to remain here during the additional screening, Captain. The atmosphere in the room had changed. What began as an apparent false alarm now felt like the beginning of something far more serious. While arrangements were being made to transfer Harrington to the advanced screening zone, Titan's actions changed once more. The dog moved towards the uniform jacket, which remained on the table, his attention becoming sharply focused. He's attempting to communicate something specific, Reeves observed, permitting Titan to approach the jacket. The dog carefully sniffed the garment, then stopped at the collar, gently but persistently pawing at the left lapel. Harrington expressed his discomfort. This is absurd. This was a standard uniform provided by the airline. Reeves recalled an incident from 6 months prior. A smuggler had concealed contraband within the clothing seams, bypassing typical security checks. Titan had discovered it at that time as well. I'd like to examine this more closely, Reeves stated, picking up the jacket. He gently ran his fingers along the collar and lapel, the areas Titan had pointed out. Despite the lack of any clear indication, he observed that the stitching on the left side seemed subtly different, almost too tight to readily see. We require the portable imaging equipment, he stated to Coleman, the type utilized for potential electronic compartments. You're dismantling my uniform because of a dog's reaction? Harrington exclaimed, his voice escalating. This is custom-tailored, valued at more than $1,000. Coleman paused briefly, then initiated the necessary communication. Should no evidence be located, the department will cover any damages, she guaranteed the pilot. While waiting for the equipment, Reeves thought about Titan's past. The Shepherd had previously identified a memory card concealed within a pen with a hollowed-out interior, which contained vital evidence in a human trafficking case. On another occasion, he'd flagged traces of explosives that were so slight that even the laboratory had initially overlooked them. I've worked with K-9 units for 12 years, Reeves told Coleman. Titan operates with exceptional accuracy. His detection rate is almost flawless. The imaging technician brought in a portable X-ray device, meticulously scanning the jacket as everyone observed the connected monitor. Initially, the scan revealed nothing out of the ordinary. However, when the scanner moved across the left lapel, an anomaly appeared. A slim, flat object was visible, concealed within the fabric and difficult to see without assistance. What is that? Coleman inquired, examining the screen. The technician made adjustments, improving the image. It appeared to be a microchip or a small electronic component. Everyone's attention shifted to Harrington, whose face had lost all color. Captain, Coleman stated, her voice now firm, can you please explain what's concealed within your uniform? Harrington's facade crumbled. I want a lawyer. Reeves crouched beside Titan, who had at last calmed down, his objective completed. Good boy, he murmured. You were correct all along. Michael Reeves's relationship with dogs hadn't always been as strong as it was with Titan. Growing up in South Chicago, he'd suffered a bite from a neighbor's Rottweiler when he was 8 years old, an experience that made him cautious around K-9s for several years. Although he'd largely overcome his concerns when he joined the Chicago Police Department at 23, he still never envisioned becoming a K-9 handler. A shift occurred during his 4th year as a police officer, after he observed K-9 officer Patrice Williams and her Belgian Malinois, Rex, successfully locate a kidnapping suspect through an industrial park, leading to the rescue of a 6-year-old child. The accuracy, the teamwork, and the unspoken connection between the handler and dog made a profound impression on him. 3 months afterward, Reeves submitted his application for the K-9 unit. His supervisor expressed surprise. Reeves had established a strong reputation in cybercrime investigation, not field operations. However, something about the connection between handler and dog resonated with him. You sure about this, Mike? His sergeant had inquired. K-9 work isn't merely a job, it's a lifestyle. That dog goes home with you, lives with you, depends on you. I'm sure, Reeves replied, with more conviction than he actually possessed. The Homeland Security K-9 training center in Texas assigned him to Titan, then a 2-year-old shepherd who had previously failed 2 training attempts, not due to a lack of ability, but because of what instructors described as excessive analytical behavior. Head trainer Martinez explained that most detection dogs alert immediately upon finding a target. Titan, however, pauses, verifies, then alerts. This makes him slower in certification tests, but could potentially lead to greater accuracy in complex environments. The initial weeks of their partnership presented difficulties. Reeves, who was still developing his handler skills, experienced frustration when Titan would hesitate during detection drills, appearing unfocused. A significant moment occurred during a training exercise when Titan bypassed the simulated explosive material and instead signaled an alert to an airport worker's bag, which was not part of the planned scenario. A subsequent security check revealed prescription medications the worker had inadvertently failed to declare. Concerns were raised about medications containing chemical compounds potentially usable in improvised explosives. Martinez acknowledged this, noting it was a thorough observation. Subsequently, Reeves modified his methods, allowing Titan the necessary time for comprehension. Their certification scores subsequently increased significantly, and upon assignment to O'Hare's International Terminal, they rapidly demonstrated their ability to identify anomalies that others overlooked. Their most impactful case occurred 8 months prior, when Titan flagged a diplomatic pouch for inspection, a request technically beyond their jurisdiction. Reeves, trusting his partner, had delayed the diplomatic courier, resulting in an international incident. This was ultimately resolved when a subsequent investigation uncovered counterfeit diplomatic credentials and smuggled biological samples. The case had resulted in commendations for them and a reputation for being willing to follow Titan's nose regardless of politics or pressure. Trust the dog had become Reeves' personal mantra. When in doubt, when under pressure, when facing skepticism from superiors, those 3 words centered him, and Titan had never let him down. Even now, as the investigation into Captain Harrington intensified, Reeves clung to that certainty amidst the growing tension around them. With methodical precision, the specialized TSA technical team worked, carefully cutting through the stitching of Captain Harrington's uniform lapel under the bright examination lights. Captain Harrington sat handcuffed to a chair in the corner, silent since requesting legal representation 15 minutes earlier. Careful, cautioned senior technician Sophia Lin as her colleague extracted a paper-thin electronic component from within the fabric. Don't damage it. A hush fell over the room as Lin secured the item within a designated evidence container. Roughly the size of a postage stamp but thinner than a credit card, the device displayed visible copper traces and a miniature power source. Initial assessment? Coleman inquired. Lin scrutinized it using a magnifying lens. It appears to be a custom electronic component, not commercially produced, possibly a triggering mechanism or a remote activation device. Reeves felt his pulse quicken. For what? That's what we need to find out, Lin said, connecting the container to a specialized scanner. However, whatever it is, your dog stopped it from boarding that aircraft. FBI Special Agent Victor Ramirez arrived in the room, having been summoned immediately after the device was found. Captain James Harrington, he stated, consulting a tablet. Or should I say James Harrington Kaiser. The pilot reacted quickly, his eyes widening. According to facial recognition data, you resemble an individual who ceased to be under Interpol surveillance in Frankfurt 3 years prior, Ramirez stated. Your associations with specific extremist organizations were noted. Harrington, also known as Kaiser, abruptly moved toward the door. Although restrained with handcuffs to the chair, his forceful attempt resulted in him and the chair being displaced several feet, at which point 2 officers subdued him. Amidst the conflict, he bit down forcefully on something within his mouth.
Suicide pile.
Ramirez exclaimed, "Get medical personnel in here immediately." The following moments were chaotic as medical staff hurried in, prying open the man's jaw and removing a capsule that was partially dissolved. He was swiftly secured to a gurney and transported to the airport's medical center. He will survive, the paramedic reassured them. We retrieved most of it in time, but he will be unconscious for some time. Once the disturbance subsided, Lin's assessment proceeded with increased intensity. She verified it was undoubtedly a bespoke activation trigger, indicating her screen, intended to connect with an external component, one absent from his possessions. Ramirez addressed Reeves. We must search the aircraft without delay. American Airlines Flight 862 had been completely occupied by the point the emergency evacuation order was issued. Passengers disembarked onto the snowy tarmac, their faces reflecting confusion and frustration as they were guided back to a secure area of the terminal. A specialized explosive detection team thoroughly swept the Boeing 777 from nose to tail, with a particular focus on the flight deck where Harrington would have been stationed. Titan worked alongside the bomb-sniffing dogs, his approach noticeably altered. He was methodical and precise, carefully examining each section before proceeding. While in the co-pilot's seat, Titan issued an alert from beneath the standard cushion. The technical team meticulously removed the cushion, uncovering what initially appeared to be a typical component of the seat's mechanical structure. However, closer inspection revealed otherwise. A second electronic device, significantly larger and more intricate, was hidden within the seat's adjustment mechanism. A bomb technician confirmed the presence of a remote-triggered explosive device following a scan. The device was sophisticated, featuring low metal content, which explains why it bypassed standard pre-flight checks. How severe? Reeves inquired softly. The technician's face showed deep concern. If it had landed here, it would have pierced the cockpit floor, potentially harming vital flight systems. A disaster in flight above the Atlantic. Ramirez's phone sounded. Following a short call, he addressed the team. The pilot is conscious and coherent. Captain James Harrington Kaiser was sitting upright in the hospital bed, his arms restrained to the side supports. His complexion was pale in the bright medical illumination. 2 FBI agents stood watch at the entryway as Ramirez, Coleman, and Reeves entered the room. Titan had been kept outside with another handler, a standard precaution for interrogations. The device has been located and rendered safe, Ramirez announced directly. We are aware of the explosive in the cockpit. What remains unknown is whether there are additional devices. Kaiser's eyes darted between them, assessing their reactions. The unsuccessful suicide attempt had left him physically vulnerable, but mentally sharp. I desire immunity. You are facing federal terrorism charges for attempting to destroy an aircraft, Ramirez stated flatly. Immunity is not being offered. Cooperation could potentially prevent a death sentence. A pause settled between them, then Coleman approached. 243 passengers, Captain, including the crew, children, families, people who entrusted you with their lives. Something in her words appeared to affect him. His shoulders visibly relaxed a little. It wasn't meant to turn out this way, he said at last. Initially, the operation involved only information-gathering intelligence work. Ramirez positioned a recorder on the bedside table. Let's begin from the start. The narrative that unfolded proved to be more intricate than anyone expected. Kaiser had, in fact, been a licensed pilot for 15 years prior to being recruited by a well-organized terrorist network during a layover in Istanbul. His first tasks were relatively straightforward. Adhering to security procedures, I documented vulnerability trends and, on occasion, moved encrypted data drives between overseas divisions. The organization identifies as Ascension, Kaiser informed me. They differ from typical groups. They operate with patience and precision. Certain actions are conceived years beforehand. And this operation? Reeves inquired. It's phase 1 of a 3-part sequence, Kaiser responded. Coordinated attacks targeting 3 transatlantic flights, highlighting security weaknesses despite measures implemented after September 11th. The initial flight served as the first test. Complete operational information revealed that Kaiser had received the custom-made explosives during a stopover in Dubai 3 weeks prior and had installed them during standard maintenance intervals, times when pilots frequently inspect their aircraft. The activation mechanisms integrated into his uniform would have engaged once the plane attained cruising altitude over the Atlantic. The other 2 pilots, are they in place? Ramirez inquired.
Kaiser nodded slowly.
Flights from Frankfurt to New York, Paris to Chicago were scheduled within the next 48 hours. Coleman was already on her phone, coordinating with international authorities. There's more, Kaiser continued, his voice dropping. The Chicago apartment, Unit 512 at Lakeside Towers, served as a network safe house. A team was dispatched immediately to the address. Within an hour, images began flooding into the secure tablets Ramirez carried. The apartment had been transformed into an advanced operations hub, containing blueprints of major airports, 3 protocol documents, and, most concerningly, detailed specifications for the explosive devices. This extended beyond 3 planes, Ramirez observed, as he reviewed the files. They were analyzing the entire international aviation security system. Kaiser affirmed this with a nod. Ascension is pursuing a long-term strategy. The plane attacks served as a demonstration of capability. The actual objective is the worldwide air transportation system, pinpointing vulnerabilities and exploiting them in a methodical way. Ramirez insisted on names. He wanted the names of all individuals involved. Kaiser provided the information he possessed, clarifying that the network functioned in separate units with restricted shared knowledge. His main contact was referred to only as the coordinator, a woman he had encountered on 2 occasions, both times at busy international terminals where observation was difficult. Kaiser cautioned that she would be watching news reports. He stated that when my flight doesn't arrive as scheduled, she's going to realize something is amiss. Contingency plans will then be initiated. I inquired about these plans, and he responded that he didn't know the specifics, but there is a secondary operations center located somewhere near the airport. Reeves considered Titan's remarkable detection capabilities, the device integrated into my uniform. I asked what could have made it detectable to my dog. Kaiser appeared truly puzzled, saying it shouldn't have been. The components had been deliberately engineered to prevent chemical detection. Still, Reeves insisted. He focused on you right away. The ex-pilot denied it. Then your dog is either incredibly fortunate or remarkably skilled, as these devices underwent trials involving K-9 teams in 3 countries. As they departed the hospital room, Ramirez addressed Reeves. We must locate that secondary operations center quickly. I know someone who can help, Reeves replied, looking towards the exit where Titan waited, his posture watchful even though considerable time had elapsed since their morning patrol had evolved into something far more important. Snow fell in heavy flakes as the tactical team gathered in the airport maintenance area, their breath appearing as vapor in the frigid air. Reeves checked Titan's protective vest once more before fastening the specialized booties intended to shield the dog's paws from sharp objects and chemical hazards. The maintenance facility comprises 5 distinct buildings, FBI Tactical Commander Wilson clarified, indicating the blueprint shown on a tablet. Considering Kaiser's restricted intelligence and cell phone triangulation data from his known contacts, we suspect Building C is our most probable target. Ramirez acknowledged. The coordinator, our suspect, probably isn't aware that we've detected the operation, but she will likely become suspicious when Kaiser's flight arrived without any issues, Coleman added. Reeves knelt beside Titan. Ready, boy? He whispered. The shepherd's alert stance provided the response he needed. The approach was silent and coordinated. 3 teams prepared to enter concurrently from separate access points, with Reeves and Titan accompanying the primary entry team. As they approached Building C, an unremarkable building containing electrical systems for runway lighting, Titan's actions validated their assessment. The shepherd's demeanor shifted, his movements becoming more measured, his nose working intensely. He's detected something, Reeves murmured into his radio. The tactical team then established positions around the primary entrance. With a 3-count signal, they forced the door, moving quickly into the poorly lit interior. The front office seemed ordinary. Maintenance logs, shift schedules, and equipment manuals were neatly arranged on metal shelving units. However, Titan wasn't focused on the office. He pulled Reeves towards a door labeled electrical access only, his sense of urgency clear. Beyond the door, a staircase descended to a sublevel that wasn't included in the airport's official blueprints. The team proceeded cautiously, tactical lights showing the restricted passage. At the lower level, they discovered what seemed like a typical maintenance room, with the exception of the woman positioned near a laptop computer, her hand positioned above the keyboard. FBI. Hands where we can see them, Ramirez announced. Rather than obeying, the woman activated a key and reached for something inside her jacket. The tactical team reacted instantly, 2 officers restraining her while others secured the room. Titan emitted a sharp bark, drawing Reeves towards a storage cabinet situated along the far wall. Check it, Wilson instructed. Within the cabinet, They found their worst suspicions confirmed additional specialized explosive devices, numbering at least 20 units, each resembling those found on the aircraft, although with differing mounting configurations. "She's initiating a data wipe," the technical specialist reported, as he examined the computer. "But we caught it in time." The woman, later identified as Elena Vostov, a known associate of several extremist groups, remained silent as she was handcuffed and led away. However, the evidence was compelling. The room held everything necessary for a coordinated attack on multiple aircraft, including devices in various stages of assembly, airline schedules, security rotation patterns, and most disturbingly, personnel files on dozens of potential flight crew recruits like Kaiser. Ramirez understood this extended far beyond just the current flights, reviewing the data. This was a long-term operation, years in the making. As the FBI evidence team documented the scene, Reeves took Titan to each corner of the room, ensuring nothing was overlooked. In the final area, behind a ventilation panel, the Shepherd alerted once more. Inside was a small hard drive carefully hidden. Wilson noted this as they secured the drive, seeing it as one final insurance policy. Emergency vehicles surrounded the maintenance area, their lights illuminating the falling snow with alternating red and blue patterns. A sense of the scale of what they had averted began to settle as word spread through the command center. It began with one pilot, Coleman said, observing as the last of the evidence was loaded for transport. "If your dog hadn't stopped him," Reeves nodded, scratching Titan behind the ears. "One flight becomes 3. A series of 3 successful attacks provided a template for many more. The Shepherd looked up at him, snow gathering on his dark fur, the mission completed. 2 days later, Reeves was in the airport's administrative conference room as Airport Director Margaret Chun spoke to the team. Titan sat attentively beside him, recently groomed and wearing his formal canine and unit harness. According to Chen, her voice filled with gravity, a potentially devastating terrorist plot was stopped thanks to the outstanding efforts of Officer Reeves and his canine partner Titan, in conjunction with TSA, FBI, and airport security. International authorities have verified the successful apprehension of 2 additional pilots in Frankfurt and Paris, averting what would have been coordinated attacks. Ramirez then advanced, acknowledging Reeves with a nod. Findings from the Secondary Operations Center have resulted in the identification of 17 Ascension Network operatives in 8 countries. Apprehensions are in progress. Reeves listened, one hand resting lightly on Titan's head. For the Shepherd, it had been a routine day of performing his duties, utilizing his exceptional senses to safeguard the humans nearby. He hadn't grasped the importance of the pilot he'd stopped, or the lives he'd preserved. He had a sense that something was amiss and wouldn't yield until someone paid attention. "Officer Reeves," Chun stated, "the Department of Homeland Security has asked that you and Titan provide training consultations for their aviation security division. Your approaches, especially your reliance on your partner's intuition, even when standard procedures indicated something different, embody the kind of flexible security thinking that is necessary." Following the meeting's conclusion and the exchange of congratulations, Reeves knelt beside his partner. "Good boy, Titan," he whispered, briefly pressing his forehead against the Shepherd's. "The best boy." Titan's tail wagged once, his dark eyes meeting Reeves with what almost seemed like understanding. Then his ears perked up, his attention already shifting to the next task, the next patrol, the next threat that only he might detect. They walked back together toward Terminal 3, prepared to resume their observation of the thousands of travelers who would never realize how narrowly they avoided disaster, nor that their safety had been ensured by an officer and a dog who prevented a pilot from boarding his plane. Have you ever seen a working dog like Titan perform duties at an airport or public place? We welcome your stories in the comments below. Do you believe in your pet's intuition regarding people, even if the reasoning isn't clear? Many handlers report that their canine partners often detect things humans overlook. What's the most remarkable animal story you've encountered about an animal averting a disaster or rescuing lives? Please share your experiences. We review all comments and may include your story in a future video. What other canine heroes would you like us to highlight in upcoming videos? Tell us what topics you're most interested in. If the story of Titan's incredible save at O'Hare International Airport impressed you, Please share this video with friends and family who appreciate the amazing capabilities of working dogs. Together, we can spread awareness about these four-legged heroes who serve alongside their human partners. Rewatch our previous canine stories displayed now, including the amazing story of Rex, who tracked a kidnapper through a blizzard, and Luna, who discovered a hidden human trafficking operation at a border checkpoint. Remember, sometimes the greatest heroes walk on four legs. See you in the next video. An airport police dog persistently alerted to an abandoned bag. Could it potentially contain explosives? Hesitantly, security personnel opened the bag, and the contents necessitated an immediate evacuation. Here's the full story. Before we proceed, please share in the comments below where you're watching from. And if you enjoy compelling police dog stories such as this one, remember to subscribe to stay updated on future content. A sterile glow from the fluorescent lights of Terminal 5 at O'Hare International Airport illuminated the polished floors as travelers rushed by, pulling rolling suitcases and carry-ons. A continuous hum of activity filled the air, punctuated by announcements over the PA system and conversations in a mix of languages. It was just past 7 a.m. as the morning international arrivals began to arrive, bringing the usual atmosphere that Officer Benjamin Linus knew from his 6 years with the airport's K-9 unit. Benjamin straightened his dark blue uniform jacket, his badge reflecting the overhead light as he observed the increasing crowd. Beside him, Lexus, his Dutch Shepherd partner for 4 years, stayed in perfect heel position, his dark eyes carefully examining the constant flow of passengers. Another day in paradise, huh, boy? Benjamin murmured, briefly scratching behind Lexus's alert ears. The shepherd leaned into his touch before returning to his vigilant posture. Morning, Linus. Officer Teresa Wong called from her post near customs. Lexus looking sharp today. Benjamin nodded in greeting. Just finished training recertification yesterday. Passed with flying colors. As usual, Security Director Melissa Harrington's voice crackled through Benjamin's radio. Attention all units. We are experiencing increased passenger volume in Terminal 5 today because of rerouted flights from Milwaukee. Please maintain a visible presence near checkpoints. Copy that, Benjamin responded, already adjusting their patrol route mentally. K-9 Unit 7 will cover the east side checkpoints. Just another day at O'Hare, he thought. Routine, predictable, secure. As they turned the corner towards the less crowded international departures area, Benjamin noticed a subtle shift in the tension of Lexus's leash, the first sign that this day would be anything but ordinary. The change in Lexus's behavior was slight but unmistakable, a sudden, focused alertness that altered his usual patrol posture into something more intense. The shepherd's ears moved forward, his tail straightened, and his nose began working more intensely, taking in the air with increased urgency. "What is it, boy?" Benjamin asked softly, immediately noticing his partner's change in behavior. Lexus pulled gently on his lead, guiding Benjamin towards the eastern wing of the International Departures Terminal, a section currently undergoing renovation and less crowded than the main concourse. Early morning light poured in through large windows, revealing dust motes suspended in the air above the section with restricted seating. Benjamin surveyed the area, trying to understand what had caught Lexus's attention. The space was largely unoccupied, with only a handful of passengers asleep in chairs or absorbed in their electronics. Initially, nothing seemed out of place, but then Lexus abruptly moved towards a row of seats along the wall, his focus fixed on something located underneath them. The item was a bag, a medium-sized black duffel with no visible identification tag. It was positioned perfectly centered under the middle seat, partially hidden from a quick glance, but fully visible from their present viewpoint. Benjamin's training engaged instantly. "Secure," he instructed, and Lexus remained perfectly still, keeping his attention on the bag. However, something seemed unusual about Lexus's behavior. During training for explosive or narcotic detection, Lexus exhibited distinct alert behaviors, a passive sit for explosives and active pawing for narcotics. This was an anomaly. The dog's body was stiff with tension, and a low, sustained growl emanated from his throat, a sound Benjamin had seldom heard from his usually calm partner. "Lexus, check," Benjamin instructed, initiating the inspection signal. Rather than approaching the bag and indicating as he had been trained to do, Lexus retreated several steps. His growl deepened. His tail was now completely straight, hackles slightly raised, a posture unlike his usual alert stance. A passing custodian noticed them and began to approach. Benjamin raised his hand, stopping the man. "Sir, please step back," he ordered calmly but firmly. As if reacting to the newcomer, Lexus suddenly emitted 3 sharp, staccato barks, a sound so unlike his usual alerting behavior that it sent a chill down Benjamin's spine. Maintaining focus on the bag, Benjamin activated his radio. "Control, this is K9 Unit 7 at Terminal 5, East Wing, Section C. I have an unattended bag exhibiting atypical K9 alert behavior. I request backup and implementation of area evacuation protocol." The dispatcher replied, "Copy that. K9 Unit 7 security personnel are on their way. Commence standard abandoned bag protocol." Benjamin then began clearing the surrounding area, speaking with a firm but controlled tone to avoid causing alarm. "Esteemed guests, please gather your possessions and proceed calmly to the main concourse. Security personnel will guide you from that location." As the last non-employees left the area, a security team arrived, led by Lieutenant Jack Cassidy, the airport's senior security officer. His characteristic worried expression intensified as he evaluated the scene. "What's the situation, Linus?" Cassidy inquired, gesturing towards the bag. "Unattended bag, sir. No discernible markings, placed intentionally beneath the chairs." Cassidy's gaze moved to Lexus, who stayed focused on the target, their body rigid. "Your dog providing an unexpected alert?" Benjamin responded, worry clear in his tone. "This isn't his standard explosive alert, nor is it a narcotics detection. I'm not familiar with him behaving in this manner." Cassidy's face grew stern. "Unfamiliar with this reaction? What is the significance of that? He should be alerting or he shouldn't be." A second security team arrived, bringing their usual detection tools. The lead technician, Raj Patel, started preparing a portable X-ray machine, observing Lexus with a professional gaze. "Let's examine what's inside before we decide anything," Cassidy instructed. "Sir," Benjamin insisted, "I've been working with Lexus for 4 years. When he behaves like this, there's a valid explanation." As evacuation procedures began, Benjamin's thoughts returned to the day he first encountered Lexus, 3 years prior to their formal partnership. The recollection was clear: a scorching July afternoon at the Homeland Security Training Facility in Virginia, when Benjamin was attending specialized K9 handler training. "This one's different," Trainer Martinez stated, guiding Benjamin toward an isolated kennel separate from the other training dogs. A Dutch Shepherd, roughly 2 years old, was discovered during a raid on a trafficking operation near the Mexican border. Benjamin had looked into the kennel, anticipating an aggressive or distressed animal. However, he encountered an intensely focused gaze from a slender, muscular shepherd with distinctive amber eyes. Unlike many rescued dogs, the dog did not bark or pace. He remained perfectly still, evaluating Benjamin with a nearly human intelligence. "What is his history?" Benjamin asked, maintaining eye contact with the extraordinary animal. Martinez referred to his clipboard. "We're not entirely sure," he stated. "The operation involved smuggling both drugs and people. This dog was discovered guarding a container holding children inside. He did not attack the rescue team, did not attempt to flee, but instead protected the kids. The strangest thing I've ever seen," Martinez commented. "He's failed traditional explosive detection programming," Martinez clarified. "Not because he lacks the ability to detect. His scent detection abilities are exceptional, yet he repeatedly signals to things we haven't intentionally introduced. We initially dismissed these as false positives." Benjamin inquired when Martinez paused. "3 times now, he's alerted on items or locations where we discovered nothing. Each instance, we submitted the indicated items for comprehensive analysis. On each occasion, further investigation revealed something previously undetected. Chemical precursors, residues, compounds our routine tests failed to identify. It was as if he perceived the world on a different sensory plane than our other dogs." Benjamin returned to the current reality as Patel's voice cut through his memories. The initial scan revealed standard items, clothing, toiletries, and what appeared to be documentation. No explosive compounds were found, nor any unusual wiring or devices. Cassidy directed a significant look toward Benjamin. There you have it. With due respect, sir, Patel added, there's a peculiarity concerning the interior lining. Observe this density variation. The bag appeared to have a subtly altered compartment. It was barely noticeable, but clearly not a result of standard manufacturing. Benjamin felt a sudden feeling of unease as he noticed Lexus looking at him, seemingly confirming his suspicions. Lieutenant, he said softly, I believe we must treat this with utmost seriousness. Lexus has identified something that our usual protocols aren't addressing. Cassidy finally gave the order, call the bomb squad. Implement full evacuation protocol, establishing a 100-foot perimeter. Linus, I expect your dog to be correct about this. The bomb squad technicians advanced with methodical precision, their bulky protective suits making them appear almost robotic as they neared the abandoned bag. Benjamin and Lexus had been moved back to the perimeter line, where they maintained visual contact with the operation. Remote assessment first, announced Garcia, the bomb tech lead, as his team deployed a small rover equipped with additional sensing equipment. Cassidy stood beside Benjamin, his posture betraying the palpable tension. O'Hare deals with more than 2,500 lost items annually, he said. 99% are simply forgotten laptops and water bottles. He shook his head. We're closing down half a terminal because of a dog's unusual actions. The rover approached the bag, and Garcia directed its unique sensors from a distance. Following several anxious minutes, his voice came over the radio. No explosive compounds found, no radiation, no known biological agents detected. Shifting to a physical examination, Garcia proceeded, personally inspecting the bag with a specialized camera. Another individual arrived at the edge of the area, a woman wearing a fitted charcoal suit, her Homeland Security identification clearly visible. Agent Diana Walsh introduced herself briefly, asking about the circumstances. Likely a false alarm, Cassidy replied, before Benjamin could respond. Typical abandoned bag. No explosives have been found. We anticipate resuming operations soon. Walsh's keen gaze shifted from the surroundings to Lexus, who was now looking straight at her, his stance still tense and focused. That your dog, officer? Linus. Benjamin Linus. And yes, this is Lexus, she stated, rather than asked, which surprised Benjamin. I read the file. His alert behavior is unusual? Very, Benjamin confirmed. I've never seen him react this way before. Walsh examined Lexus with heightened interest. What exactly is different about his behavior? He is maintaining distance while remaining focused. Normally, he approaches detection targets directly. And these vocalizations? As if on cue, Lexus let out another series of short, sharp barks. They're not part of his training. Over the radio, Garcia's voice interrupted their conversation. Physical inspection reveals no traditional threat devices. However, there's definitely a concealed compartment in the lining. Very sophisticated work, not visible to the naked eye. Walsh's face grew serious. Don't open that compartment, she instructed firmly into her own radio. Excuse me? Cassidy questioned. This is airport jurisdiction. Not anymore, Walsh replied, showing her credentials more clearly. That bag corresponds to a profile we're monitoring. Officer Linus, how is your dog reacting? Is he retreating while still attentive? Benjamin responded, seemingly taken aback. That's precisely what's happening. Instead of explaining, Walsh quickly spoke into her radio. Agent Walsh is requesting immediate hazmat support at O'Hare Terminal 5, East Wing. A potential CBR material is suspected. Priority code Alpha. Our sensors detect known threats, Walsh replied grimly to Cassidy's protest. We've been tracking a new synthetic compound that evades standard detection. There have been 3 incidents in the past month: Dallas, Miami, and Phoenix. The only consistent detection has been unusual behavior from certain K-9 units. Specifically, alert without approach. Benjamin experienced a chilling realization. He was sensing something hazardous, though unfamiliar from his training. Therefore, he maintained a safe distance while staying vigilant. Indeed, Walsh affirmed, and should it prove to be what we suspect, your dog may have potentially saved hundreds of lives. The operations manager's face reddened significantly when Walsh requested a complete evacuation of the terminal. Do you comprehend the implications of this request? This situation involves potentially disrupting travel for thousands of people and causing millions in lost revenue. I understand perfectly, Walsh stated, her voice steady but with an unmistakable firmness. And I'm not requesting it. Following a moment of heightened tension, Cassidy's radio crackled with a transmission from the airport director himself. After a short discussion, he addressed the group, his face serious. The director has approved the full evacuation protocol for Terminal 5. We are initiating it now. With the evacuation announcement echoing through the terminal, Benjamin experienced a brief sense of relief, which was swiftly overtaken by a fresh worry. If this is what you suspect, Agent Walsh, he thought, already observing the escalating disarray of the evacuation, then whoever placed this bag here is probably still in the airport. And now we're setting everyone in motion, making them more difficult to track. Benjamin stated, his mind racing through the possibilities. We need to find them before they realize we've discovered the bag. Lexus can help. If he detected whatever's in that bag, he might be able to track the person who handled it. Agent Harlow from the CBR response unit arrived and quickly coordinated with the hazmat team. Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, speaking in a low, steady tone. We need to find who left this boy. Can you do that? Can you find them? Lexus's intelligent eyes focused on Benjamin's face, a gentle whine escaping his throat, demonstrating understanding yet conveying worry. I know it's dangerous, Benjamin said quietly. We'll be cautious, but we need to find them. The hazmat team arrived, fully equipped in protective gear, their presence forming a strange, isolated zone of intense action within the now unsettlingly vacant terminal. Benjamin and Lexus stayed at the designated perimeter, observing as the specialists cautiously neared the bag. Remote extraction first, the hazmat lead stated, deploying a specialized robot intended to manage potentially hazardous materials. While maintaining a negative pressure environment during the transfer, Harlow approached, holding a tablet displaying security footage. We've got partial facial recognition from cameras near where the bag was placed. The individual is a male, approximately 30 to 35 years old. He is Caucasian and traveling alone. He entered through the north entrance at 6:14 a.m. He was carrying a bag. That was nearly 2 hours ago, Benjamin noted with concern, suggesting he could be long gone. Harlow countered, swiping to another image, stating he was last seen entering a restroom near Gate E9 20 minutes ago and has not emerged yet. Meanwhile, the hazmat team successfully accessed the concealed compartment within a specialized containment unit. The hazmat lead's voice crackled over the radio. Professional detachment briefly faltered. This isn't just a chemical agent, he stated. There's sophisticated delivery equipment in here. A timer, atomizer, distribution system, and documentation. A lot of it. The hazmat lead continued, his voice returning to its professional calm. The dispersal mechanism was set for noon, 4 hours from now, when the terminal would be at peak capacity. Travel documents, multiple identities, and maps. Terminal layouts for O'Hare, Atlanta Hartsfield, LAX. This indicated a broader operation. A hazmat technician meticulously removed what seemed to be a small notebook, securing it in a transparent evidence bag, and subjecting it to a decontamination procedure before it was given to Harlow. It's a manifesto, Harlow stated grimly as he examined the pages. Concerning rhetoric, including expressions of extreme opposition to immigration and allusions to restricting international travel, has emerged. This indicated a planned terrorist attack with the intent to target foreign nationals at several airports. The hazmat team has identified the chemical compound involved. It is a synthesized neurological agent, non-lethal upon contact, but intended to induce panic, disorientation, and respiratory distress within a densely populated airport environment, potentially leading to widespread panic and chaotic trampling. Benjamin completed his thought. Standard sensors wouldn't identify it, as it's designed to stay inactive until scattered. Harlow gave Benjamin a hotel key, which was located in an outer pocket of the bag and is now secured in an evidence bag. It should be safe for your dog to analyze the scent from the bag without physical contact. Lexus. Scent. Benjamin instructed, holding the sealed bag close to the shepherd's nose without opening it. Lexus inhaled deeply, then looked at Benjamin, attentive and prepared. Locate him. Benjamin gave the signal, and they proceeded into the terminal's interior, where their suspect might still be concealed. Lexus advanced with focused determination through the evacuated terminal, his nose working constantly as he followed the scent from the hotel key card. Benjamin kept a steady tension on the lead, allowing his partner sufficient freedom to work while remaining connected to his movements. Agent Walsh and 2 airport security officers trailed behind, maintaining a distance to avoid disrupting the scent tracking. The deserted terminal, usually filled with activity, provided a disturbing scene for their pursuit. Coffee cups remained warm on the tables. Breakfast sandwiches were left unfinished. Newspapers drifted in the air conditioning, which continued to operate despite the evacuation. As they headed toward Concourse E, Benjamin spoke softly into his radio, while Lexus guided them past closed duty-free shops and empty waiting areas. Lexus abruptly stopped at a junction of corridors, his sense of smell working intensely as he appeared to evaluate different scent paths. Following a brief pause, he turned purposefully toward a service corridor labeled Authorized Personnel Only. He is entering the restricted area, Benjamin confirmed into his radio. Request backup at Service Corridor E42. The door to the service area was slightly ajar, a further cause for concern, as these doors were mandated to remain secured at all times. Lexus's pace increased, his body language indicating a closer approach to their target. The narrow corridor opened into a more spacious back-of-house area where airport operations handled luggage, supplies, and equipment. Lexus paused once more, moving around a section close to a staff break room before returning towards a door labeled Electrical Access. His actions changed slightly, his ears perked, his posture suggesting he's found their target. Through the little, wire-reinforced window, Benjamin could see activity inside, someone quickly collecting things from a backpack. Subject identified, Benjamin spoke into his radio. Male matches description, seems to be getting ready for something. Request immediate tactical response. Lexus emitted a warning bark. The suspect had observed their presence through the window. Immediately, the man inside began moving, displaying frantic energy, retrieving something from his pack. No time, Benjamin responded urgently. Subject is actively handling unknown materials. We're moving in now. With practiced coordination, Benjamin and the security team positioned themselves at the door while Walsh covered their flank. With Benjamin's approval, an officer opened the door, and they entered quickly. Airport police, Homeland Security, hands where we can see them, Walsh ordered, raising her weapon. The suspect, a thin man with close-cropped hair and pale eyes, paused briefly, his hands near what looked like another modified bag resembling the one they had discovered. He then moved swiftly, lunging for a small canister on the workbench. Another device. Benjamin cautioned, issuing a command at the same time. Lexus, stop. The Dutch shepherd surged ahead with intense focus, expertly trained to neutralize dangers without causing serious harm. He intercepted the suspect's arm just as he attempted to reach the canister, using a controlled pressure with his jaw that made the man cry out and fall backward. Don't move, Walsh instructed as Benjamin secured Lexus, and the security officers moved in to restrain the suspect. A brief examination of the room exposed the troubling extent of the operation, including another partially assembled dispersal device, additional documentation, and what seemed to be communication equipment. The suspect remained handcuffed to a chair in the airport security office, his gaunt face set in a look of scornful silence as Agent Harlow and a recently arrived FBI agent prepared for questioning. His name is Ethan Mercer, Walsh told Benjamin, reading from a preliminary report on her tablet. A former chemical engineering student, who left school 3 years ago, had been flagged for extremist online activity on several watch lists. However, no action was deemed necessary until now. Through the speaker, they could hear Harlow starting the interrogation, using a methodical and controlled approach. Mercer remained silent, offering only occasional smirks and shrugs in response. The interrogation stretched on for several minutes without significant advancement until the FBI agent presented photographs of the disassembled device on the table. A subtle expression crossed Mercer's face, not fear, but something resembling pride. "You were fortunate," Mercer finally said, his voice unexpectedly gentle and clear. "If not for that dog." Benjamin noticed Lexus stiffen next to him at the mention, as if the shepherd recognized he was the subject of discussion. "How many more?" Harlow asked, leaning forward. Mercer's smile broadened a little. "Sufficient. Today marked the commencement. The purification process has begun, and the impending events are unstoppable." A disturbance in the hallway captured their focus when the hazmat team leader arrived with pressing information. "We have finished the analysis of the communication devices located with the suspect," he stated. "They are burner phones, each containing only 3 numbers in the call history. Each of those 3 numbers traces back to prepaid phones bought in separate cities. Walsh suspected Dallas, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. His assessment proved accurate, the hazmat lead verified. Further details emerged. The devices incorporated synchronized timers, intended for simultaneous activation across all locations. "Your phones betrayed you, Ethan," Harlow stated, her voice steady through the interrogation room speaker. "We are currently monitoring your associates." He glanced at his watch with a studied nonchalance. "They are likely already in custody. Now, the crucial question remains: who will break their silence first?" The possibility of avoiding a lifetime in solitary confinement hinged on cooperation. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on Mercer's face. His meticulously built resistance started to falter. "Your dog ruined everything," Mercer abruptly said, glaring at the one-way glass as if he could see Benjamin through it. "Those devices were undetectable. We tested them for months. How did that animal know?" As the sun set over the O'Hare runways, Terminal 5 was declared clear of all threats. Limited operations had resumed in other areas of the airport. Thousands of passengers remained displaced, their travel plans disrupted by the day's events. Benjamin stood by a wall of windows overlooking the tarmac, watching planes slowly returning to their gates as Lexus rested at his feet, finally relaxed after the intense day. "Officer Linus," Agent Walsh approached, appearing weary but satisfied, "and thought you'd want an update before you left." Mercer provided his contacts after approximately 3 more hours of interrogation, she reported. Tactical teams apprehended 2 accomplices in Atlanta and 1 in Los Angeles, all possessing similar devices in early preparation stages. Dallas proved to be a false lead, a deliberate misdirection, potentially in response to compromised communications. "We stopped it," Benjamin confirmed, his voice conveying obvious relief. "Completely?" Walsh affirmed, looking down at Lexus with a gesture of respect. "The timing was absolutely critical. Had that first device deployed successfully, it would have provided data enabling improvements to the others. Each subsequent attack would have been more effective. Do you have any understanding yet of how he managed to detect the compound when none of our equipment could?" Walsh smiled faintly. "Our lab has a theory. The compound's chemical profile shifts slightly upon exposure to the surrounding atmosphere. This characteristic contributed to the difficulty in its detection. Standard instruments are often adjusted to recognize defined, consistent profiles. Lexus, however, operates differently. Canines don't use calibration. They interpret scent data through unique methods, identifying patterns and alterations beyond the capacity of current technology." Dr. Aris knelt down to Lexus's level, receiving a questioning head movement from the shepherd. "This particular dog appears exceptionally skilled. It's likely his early experiences contributed to his advanced detection abilities." Lieutenant Cassidy arrived, his initial doubts giving way to clear respect. "The director has scheduled a meeting for both of you tomorrow morning. A commendation is planned. The FBI is now assuming control of the investigation," Walsh stated. "However, Homeland Security remains keen on evaluating your K9's detection capabilities. With your permission, we'd like to develop a training program utilizing Lexus's responses to assist other dogs in recognizing these types of threats." As Walsh and Cassidy departed, Benjamin knelt beside Lexus, carefully taking the dog's face in his hands. The intelligent amber eyes that had first connected with him years ago at the training facility looked back with the same unwavering trust. "You did well today, partner. Really well." He stroked his hands along Lexus's sides. A final check was performed to ensure there were no signs of distress or exposure. Finding none, the lead was reattached to the tactical collar. "Let's go home." As they walked through the terminal, which was gradually reopening, Benjamin thought about how many near misses in his career had depended on split-second decisions and instinctive reactions. But today had been different. Today focused on the deep trust developed between Handler and K9 through years of collaboration, a connection that went beyond training manuals and standard procedures. What Lexus accomplished couldn't be duplicated by technology or documented in reports. It represented the peak of natural aptitude, specialized training, and something more intangible, a nearly instinctive ability that some remarkable working dogs appeared to have. Benjamin had consistently trusted his partner's skills, but today had solidified that trust into something absolute. No matter what difficulties they encountered moving forward, they would confront them as a team, their partnership strengthened by the experiences of today. The following morning would involve reviews, paperwork, and probably numerous inquiries regarding Lexus's distinctive detection abilities. For tonight, Benjamin felt satisfied, knowing that many travelers would return home safely to their families, completely unaware of how narrowly they had avoided disaster, and how a Dutch shepherd with amber eyes had stood between them in the midst of chaos. Have you ever experienced a moment when an animal perceived something that humans completely missed? Animals often possess remarkable abilities that science is still trying to understand. This story highlights how vital these instincts can be in critical situations. We are interested in hearing about your experiences with animals that appear to possess more understanding than the humans nearby. Considering you were in Officer Linus's position, would you have believed your canine partner's atypical behavior, despite technology and protocols indicating no danger? It requires significant courage to support a partner's instincts when others advise caution. Can you recall a time when you made a tough choice relying on your gut feeling instead of data? Working dogs, such as Lexus, contribute to saving many lives daily across the globe due to their remarkable skills and commitment. Do you have personal encounters with service animals or working dogs that impressed you with their intelligence and abilities? Please share your stories in the comments below. Inspired by Lexus's incredible story today? Don't miss our next video. Subscribe and enable notifications. We release another unforgettable story of heroism and dedication from the world's most extraordinary canine officers every day at the same time. Give a like if you think these four-legged heroes deserve more recognition for their life-saving work. We think you'll enjoy this video if you love dogs or are interested in canine units. Please see our previous stories, which are appearing on the screen now. And remember, behind every great police dog is a partnership built on unwavering trust and communication. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another amazing canine story.